two, one. Good day, everybody. My name is Carlos. I am having another episode here. We are having another episode of My Life Without Limits. I would like to introduce our co-host, which is Leah. It's a little bit cold today, so we're trying to keep ourselves warm here in Edmonton, and I'm pretty sure our guests in Calgary were also a little bit cold over there, but I'll let Leah introduce our guest in a little bit. Just want to say, how are you doing, Leah, today?
Doing good, thank you. Yeah, it was a bit of a commute into the office downtown today, but I made it and all is well.
Yeah, the roads they look a little bit
They're a little
rough
dodgy.
this morning.
Yeah,
And even the sidewalks to walk it's a little bit tough,
I
but
bet.
we made it. So
We made it. We're here.
which is good, which is a good
Mhm.
thing. So Leah, you actually, I came across this this app earlier,
Mhm.
and because somebody told me about this wonderful app that they're doing, and so I
Mhm.
started following them. And then I'm not sure if you follow them or if you were, um, well, obviously you connected with them. So
Mhm.
I will let you introduce them, but they do have a wonderful work that they've been doing for a bit now. And
Yeah.
we want you to see if you can introduce our guest today, which is awesome.
Yeah, speaking of getting around town and all that kind of stuff, we are joined today by Nabeel and Erin, who are working on a really cool app that I am very excited for them to tell you about. And yeah, I think we'll just get right into it. So, Nabeel, do you want to start by telling us, a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today working with this new app that you're creating?
Thanks, Leah, and thanks, Carlos, for having us on this podcast today. Super excited to be here to share a story with you. And I'm Nabeel Ramji, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Pedesting app.
Mhm.
And my background isn't actually, I have a Bachelor of Commerce degree from Calgary, and I spent the last 10 years before Pedesting and asset management, commercial real estate. So I'm very familiar with real estate from an asset management perspective, but I live with cerebral palsy, a physical disability, and I primarily rely on the power wheelchair to get around the bit alignment. So, and that's why I lived my professional experience, my lived experience into the Pedesting app. So I will now turn that over to Aaron, tell a bit more about himself.
Yes, Erin, welcome.
Thank you. And thank you, Carlos and Leah, for having us. My name's Aaron Shilliday. I'm an architect. I've been an architect my whole life or my adult life. And I met Nabeel about 6 years ago in a professional setting as an architect. And he took no time to say to me, you're an architect. How come you guys design buildings that don't work for people like me?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still trying to answer that question, to be honest.
Yeah.
I can't speak for my whole profession, but it really rocked me that I hadn't given it a lot of thought. And that particular day, I said, well, I follow the code and that's what my clients expect.
Yeah.
That's what the government expects. But I'm curious to know more about your question and what my answer should be or could be. And so we started hanging out quite literally just as friends. We were networking, knowing we wanted to see what we could do, especially in the city of Calgary in the built environment.
Yeah.
And we landed on tech being something that hasn't really embraced accessibility either. So here's architecture and technology have both kind of not done a whole lot in our minds. So that's how we started working about 2.5, 3 years ago on, is there a way to give people with disabilities information about how to get around the built environment? Sounds kind of simple, but it does involve, especially in the way we're doing it, involves getting the architectural files from the building owners in the city about the built environment. You really need to start with that. What's there?
Mm-hmm.
What doesn't work? And can we get around it? We always, Nabeel and I say, like, Pedesting's not an app that builds ramps. We show you where the ramps are or where they're missing and how you can get to where you want to go in spite of that. But you need that information. And so it's been a very fruitful relationship because we've learned from each other. I'm, as you could tell, I'm about 25 years older than Nabeel, but I've probably learned more from him than he's learned from me, which is actually very rewarding when you get older to realize, you can learn stuff from youth.
And what was interesting about the process, we came up with the app in the first place. When we got to hang out, and got the first hand perspective of some of the barriers that I face on a day-to-day basis. So simple things like going to a meeting at first hour. Sometimes we might go there the day before to see what the pickup and drop off might look like. The entrance accessible. If the meeting for an extended period of time, what do the washrooms look like? So there's a lot of pre-planning that someone with a disability has to do, and sometimes that information is not readily available. So you waste a lot of time, and in some cases, it causes anxiety for someone like me when they want to go out, especially when it's going to be spontaneous, going out for dinner. Sometimes you don't have that luxury of going the day before or giving them a call. They want to go out, so that's kind of the problem we want to solve.
Yeah.
And it's a huge thing to see that you guys are creating this app, because honestly, there's not that many places that will tell you what is accessible and where can you move around. Mostly for persons like you, Nabeel, and like myself, who are going to find or trying to look for accessibility on a daily basis, because that's the way we need to move around, right? So it's really important for me to understand this, that there's apps like this out there. Well, in this case in Calgary, which I don't live in Calgary myself, but I go to Calgary sometimes, and it's important to see what is it accessible there, and how you can move around there, and that's something really cool. That's very, very cool.
I think a pretty important cutoff, like while we are focused on Calgary right now, our goal is to expand across Canada and hopefully to other countries. But we feel like it's nice to do like a extended pilot projects in Calgary to demonstrate how impactful it can be and hopefully expand to other cities and we move along.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea. And I can only imagine how important it is, for you to have to check ahead. Because even I, always, anytime someone says, oh, we'll meet at this place, I always look, where's the parking and what's their menu like? And I like to know going into it. And then when you get there, you're always like, hey, where's the bathroom? I don't know. It's just one of those things. But I just loved seeing you and Erin on that news clip. From when I reached out to you guys about, just the two of you trying to navigate together, having somebody in a wheelchair and somebody able-bodied trying to navigate together, and then kind of that whole, oh, wow, it's just, I think everybody should have a little buddy to try to navigate around with, just to see,
It's true.
Yeah.
Just to see.
And so that's part of why we came up with this. That as I got to know Nabeel more, I realized he's one of the rare persons with a disability that's really not let it keep him back. Went to university, went to a regular CBE school. I think some accommodations had to be made, but he's always put himself out there, always tried a little. Yeah. But I know for every Nabeel, there's dozens of people who feel isolated. The anxiety's been too much. And I know in my own heart, these people probably could contribute a whole lot to our society. And I think we're missing out. They're missing out on us and we're missing out on them. And, you know, we definitely intend to expand because I've traveled quite a bit with Nabeel, and wow, getting to an office meeting is one thing. What about flying to a new city, going to a new hotel?
Yeah.
The hotel might say it's successful. Half dozen times he's gotten there and it didn't work for him. And he had to, suddenly he's not in his home city. He's got to find a different hotel.
Yeah.
So all that information is important to the person with a disability, and by extension, pedesting. We want to work with the hospitality industry, the airports in different cities, and really make that trip give some confidence to that person with a disability, or any pedestrian, really. But and you know, really quickly, I'll tell you, pedestrian came up, the word itself. We discovered as we were talking one day, I was using the word pedestrian, and Nabeel was not liking that word. And I said, you know, I'd known him a couple of years by then. I could tell by the look at his face. He did not like the word pedestrian. I said, Nabeel, do you not think of yourself as a pedestrian? He said, no. So we started looking, and I said, well, you are. There's vehicles and pedestrians. There's no other way to look at how we get around cities. And although you have a vehicle as part of your pedestrian experience, you're not really allowed on the road. You're supposed to be on the sidewalk. So we started looking up the definition of pedestrian in different dictionaries, and not one of them mentioned a wheelchair. There's always somebody to walk to get from A to B. So even the definition of pedestrian was sort of a linguistic barrier to me. Wow, they don't think of it, a pedestrian being somebody who doesn't walk, but still needs to get around the pedestrian environment. So we created that word pedestrian, just mean someone who gets around. Doesn't really matter how. They need to get around. We all need to get around.
It makes sense.
We should put that word in the dictionary now, and you should claim it as yours.
It's trademarked. So Merriam-Webster wants to put it in their dictionary, there'll be a little TM next to it.
Yeah, that's right. Good. You have to, because it is. It's very cool. I think that's a word that people could really, and it would be really great for merch and stuff. You know, pedesting. People will. I like that.
That's awesome. Erin, you're an architect, as you mentioned. Well, you went to school to being an architect, I imagine, and as an architect, there's a lot of buildings that you just mentioned with the stories with Nabeel about going to hotels and not being accessible, or maybe going to a room and not being accessible when he travels. It's very huge for persons like Nabeel or myself or whoever's out there, that buildings are now not accessible, and the majority of the buildings, or excuses, quotation mark, for the buildings are they're too old, we cannot rebuild them, we cannot make a change on it because it's already been done. And people are starting to say we need to access accessibility now or later, because otherwise it's going to become less accessible. But as architects, the majority of the time, coming from Mexico, which is where I come from, most of them says people don't want to put ramps, people don't want to put accessible washrooms because it's more expensive, or it's more costly, to say the right word, for the building. Now, what do you think as an architect, with being with Nabeel now for 6 years or together, how would your mind has changed from what you knew from schooling or from your background to now, to becoming to change, or to be more of an advocate for other architects out there, or construction workers? Sure.
No, that's a fantastic question, Carlos. And you're right. Buildings that were built before there was any barrier-free legislation, and that's probably, you know, the late 80s, early 90s and before, they are a challenge. And it is hard to take a building that's inaccessible. Now, when I say hard, anything can be done, but it's a matter of money. But if you take buildings being designed right now, buildings on the boards in architecture offices, they are, and I know from experience, we design the building and then we make sure we tick all the boxes for the barrier-free codes. It's at the end of the project. And we go back and fix things. And that's where that can even be expensive during the design process. So I've certainly come to find you need to start off solving that problem. It's very easy to say, I'm going to design this building so it works for Nabeel first. because it will work for Leah and myself easily, you know, and so that's a mindset change. And there have been some studies actually done by the Rick Hansen Foundation that if you design a building to meet Rick Hansen's certification goal, which is a very accessible building, they call it meaningful accessibility. It's well above the code. There might be a delta of 1 or 2% in the construction value, but the trick is you got to incorporate in the design at the beginning, not at the end or anywhere in the middle. So when the building's built, it can be modified. I don't believe I've never seen a building that couldn't be made to be accessible, but it is challenging. It's expensive, and that the owner has to have, I guess the attitude that he or she wants to make that building accessible. You can't force it on people, sadly. That's one of the things you try to. So Nabeel, I've always made the business case, and it's good for your business. It's good for the economy. It's good for society. And we start there. We don't look at it as a charitable or a government thing. This is important for all of us. And I think anyone who's had an experience, a family or friend who has a disability or a grandparent, they see it right away. And I feel blessed that I've been able to really experience life with Nabeel without limitations, by the way, and see it as an architect, not just as an observer. Really, wow, this could have been done differently. Wow, it could have been so easy. I've been in some spaces that are very accessible. You don't notice it. That's what I love about it. And they were designed to solve that problem. And they're beautiful spaces. So I have architecture friends who just loathe that somebody wants to put a ramp at their front entry. Well, then mold the landscape so that you don't need a ramp. It's not that hard. It really isn't that hard. So I hope I answered that, Carlos.
No, you did very, very well. Very, very well.
Did I get it all?
Yeah, we're going to say Carlos.
Go ahead.
Start with advocating the real estate industry about the demographics and how it's not just person with a disability or senior, but it impacts everyone. Because, for example, if I'm going out for dinner, I'm not just going by myself. I'm going with friends or family. So the economic spending power is exponential. We've been trying to advocate for real estate industry besides the market, not what you think it is. So
that's great, Nabeel. And I do have a question for you, Nabeel, regarding that, because a lot of people who are doing advocacy, like yourself or myself or even Erin, to businesses or to structures that need to be well designed for persons with disabilities, sometimes they say, oh no, or sometimes they give you the rejection right away, right? So in some people, I'm not saying myself, but some people, as soon as they get rejected, they just don't want to do advocacy anymore because they feel that they will get rejected again, right? So they will just give up. So what type of tip do you have in your mind when you go and advocate to talk to those businesses? And if you get rejected right away, how do you change your attitude and your mind to go ahead and continue doing it?
Great question. I one in situation where we put someone who might not be as receptive. We try not to publicly shame them for not being accessible because we think that's the wrong approach. Publicly shaming business owners or institutions. Our approach has been cut off as trying to identify champions of accessibility, work with those organizations or companies to help promote why accessibility is important to those who might not get on board first. So I don't really get frustrated. I do get frustrated in the moment, but then I think about, wow, there's so many champions out there. Let's work with them first.
Mhm.
Hopefully everybody will come on board over time. And did I catch that correctly?
Yeah, we kind of promised each other we weren't gonna, yeah, as Nabeel said, shame any business or institution. That's not gonna work.
Okay.
What if you think about it, Carlos? Let's say Bob owns a restaurant on a street. Down the street, Tom owns a restaurant.
Yep.
And Tom's a champion. He makes his restaurant more accessible.
Mhm.
And Bob's going to watch people going into Tom's restaurant all day long.
Yeah.
And that's proof in the pudding, you know,
Mhm.
that they'll start to see and you know, let the champions create that awareness, like we're creating it, but then they're doing it. They're actually executing on that. And, you know, like I oftentimes when you get a pretty thick skin, as I'm sure, you know, we all have at this point in our lives, but it's not rejection, it's maybe misunderstanding. Maybe they don't quite get the problem and they just think you're trying to sell them a product or a thing. And so I very often try to talk about the market that, you know, in a city like Calgary, if 10 to 15, you know, about 15% of people have a disability and roughly a little more than half of that is a mobility challenge. Well, we're getting into well over 100,000 people.
Yeah.
And that really rocks people when you say, now, where are they? These are the ones that are isolated, but vast majority of, you don't see them downtown. You don't see them in your restaurant. And it's not because they don't want to go. It's because they're frustrated. They've given up. So we try to convince them that market is there and it wants to come. It has spending power. And, you know, you can always use some other ideas about, you know, like EDI ideas of equity, diversity, and inclusion that everybody wants that, especially larger corporations. Maybe Tom and Bob, the restaurateurs, don't think about it every day, but the big corporations really know they're in the spotlight on a variety of levels. So any attempt they can make to show that they're good guys, that helps, believe it or not. Just saying, you know, this you plant your flag in this world and people will notice. And so that we just try to tell a good news story as opposed to, you know, and obviously there's times when you just you forget about Bob and you go talk to Tom a little more, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, as somebody, you know, who works, you know, me able-bodied, but you bet I will support the most accessible places, you know, myself, even though I don't require some of the stuff they have. You bet I would go, support Tom or, you know, whoever's more apt to listen and be open and welcoming. I would be going there myself more often too. And I think they need to remember that too, that there's other people that, you know, definitely.
I think if what we saw out on the sidewalks and in the restaurants were a true reflection of the numbers, we'd all wonder why it took us so long to figure this out. I firmly believe that. I could stop talking and retire and the disabled community would take over in my mind. They would show by example why this is important because they're contributing to your business in one way or another. And I firmly believe that it is happening. It's been slow, but 50 years ago, nobody was talking about this. And now it's a very loud conversation, thanks to people like you and Nabeel, you know. I'm just lucky. I'm the lucky one here.
And thankfully, sorry to cut you off, Erin, there. Thankfully, what I've seen, and from Nabeel and from you and from Leah and myself is, and I had this conversation with Leah the other day. I said, in order to change this inclusion world and make it more accessible, you need to do advocacy more and more. You need to talk about it more and more because the reason why the buildings, and I mean, Nabeel, you can touch base on this, but the reason why the buildings are not accessible today the way they're supposed to be is because people were not educated as they should have been, right? So the more you do it, the more it's going to change. And it might take 50 years, but it's starting to make a change, as you guys are saying. So
and I've worked on the backside about creating with Pedesting Corporation because we hopefully will give a business owner institutions we have data about how people are using the space regardless of how we move around. And people can't get around the space because of a barrier. Hopefully it provides the education, but if you address different barriers in your space, you know, it would be more functional and accessible for everyone. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what excites us about Pedesting is that it will help create that awareness.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have a really good support system, Nabeel, with your family and friends that have encouraged you to you know, land where you are right now?
I have an amazing support system. In fact, you know, when the time when and I met 6 years ago, I told him that at that time I felt like I did not have a voice. I felt alone. I felt isolated. I felt like I was the only one experiencing the things that I was.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, along the years, you know, my family and friends encouraged me to get involved in, for instance, you know, public policy, whether it's on a municipal level. I'm sitting in Edmonton, you have an advisory committee on accessibility.
Mhm.
That was my first introduction to my advocacy work. I was on the ACA for the city of Calgary. So that kind of I think in the beginning I was scared. I didn't know how to make an impact. But because of family and friends supporting me on that journey, I feel like I can use my voice and platform that's like Carlos and you're doing.
Yeah.
But create that awareness.
Yes.
Hopefully by change.
Nabeel's modest. He also sat on the Premier's Council for Accessibility in the
Oh,
province.
wow.
That's awesome.
He's been recognized by the Senate of Canada as being a major force at our 150 anniversary. He was
Right.
and the Queen acknowledged Nabeel.
Wow.
So he received the medal shortly before her passing. And
Wow.
Wow, that is really cool.
I think they went away, but should come back. Should I pause it for a second? I'll
Yeah,
pause.
maybe pause it. We're back. We love, no, technology issues happen. This is the way of the world right now. You know what? So I just, without it, we wouldn't be able to connect with you guys. So I always
Yeah.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Thanks for understanding.
No worries.
Yeah,
No worries at all.
honestly. No.
No worries at all.
No, we just love. So how big of a team have you guys got there in Calgary? Is it just the two of you and or have you got a pretty good team going?
there are 3 of us in the office every day, and we work
Mhm.
with a software developer who has about 30 people, 40 almost now,
Yeah.
in Canada and around the world. And they're navigation experts. So that's how we landed on
Right.
them. And
Oh,
they build software solutions and we've become very close to Mohammed is the gentleman's name that owns the company. And when we first met him, he just said, I love this. I love what you guys are doing. Nobody's thinking about this. And we've come to find that's pretty true. The world of navigation, it's more or less for cars, you know, and which is fine. But we've found, I guess you call it a little niche in that world, you know.
yeah, absolutely.
And what we're amazing work with Muhammad I have seen they've done so many things in the navigation space, but we really never did anything in the accessibility space. And to see how this can have a great impact on a global scale. So, you know, we're really excited to work with such an experienced team in field action navigation. So hopefully we can make things more accessible. And one of the things is we hope to grow our user base and geographic locations. We hope to utilize AI, for instance, with a color mentioning this morning, pedestrian on sidewalk for some cases, like I know for me, there's been cases where I can't get across the street because of a snowbank or with construction happening or there's no curb cut. So hopefully with AI, if we already have documented that there's there, hopefully with AI, if people are turning back and going another way because there's no curb cut, we will be able to know that there might be a barrier in place, whether it's temporary or a fixed barrier. So
and that science, that data can help convince the city or the building owner. Here's a problem. Look how everybody is turning here and not able to get to that part of your mall or that part of your city. And that, you know, it's not an emotional argument suddenly. It's pure science. That always helps, you know?
I think it would be really cool. I had a Facebook memory come up of a post I did a few years ago. I can't remember where this was, but at their pedestrian crossing, there was a button that you could press to say that you were a senior. So they would add a little extra time onto, you know, the countdown. Because now with all the countdowns, you know, you see when you're trying to cross, it's like, and Carlos can attest to this, there's not always enough time, especially in the winter, that you're trying to really get across the street. And would be really cool to be able to say, you know, just press a button to say, I need a little extra time. Because that's tough in the winter.
Very cool. I never seen that before. So thanks for mentioning that, Leah. I will do a bit more investigation because
trademark that one too, and and then put that on there. You guys can be the one.
And I hope you noticed Nabeel casually just said, when I'm pedestrian down the street, we don't say walking anymore.
You don't know.
We try to use that verb because we find it that's who we are. We're trying to, I guess, establish not just the word, but the concept that we all get around. And it really doesn't matter how, as long as, you know, I often say, you know, Nabeel and I are the same person. We like a nice sweater. We like a good steak. We're the same person until we hit a stair.
Yeah.
Then at the end of the conversation, I like to say, you know, we are the same person, Nabeel and I, and we should always be able to get everywhere together. Like that just seems so basic to me. But that's something, you know, like I say, Nabeel might not have done a podcast like this 6 years ago because he was very shy, very isolated when I first met him. Didn't particularly like talking, and I, like I say, I was unaware of a lot of the stuff. So we both kind of grown to where we realize that we are the same person. I rarely ever find myself waiting for Nabeel or, you know, going somewhere that he can't get to. We always get where we want to go together.
That's awesome.
Like I said, that video clip, there's something about it. Like you guys should have a reality show where they follow you around, trying to navigate the world, you know, like I just loved it. And I was like, this is just how I don't know. It was cute.
Well, give credit to the guy who did all the filming and editing, because he made it look, I was surprised. It was about 2 hours of filming for a 5-minute spot. He was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah.
That's awesome. So 6 years ago, Nabeel didn't really talk much, but now he talks and talks and talks, and it's making a huge difference, right, Nabeel?
Yeah, but you know, thanks to Andy really encouraged me to use my voice to get comfortable. The more that I talk, the more comfortable I will get.
Awesome.
And now I can keep quiet. So
good, we're glad.
That's awesome. We need more people like you guys, because honestly, I always keep saying to Leah, we don't have enough people yet with that mentality of wanting to change the world, wanting to change the city, and multiple cities, not only one city, but across Canada, which is something that needs to happen. in sooner rather than later. I'm not going to say 100 years because I might not even make it to 100. I hope I do, but but I might not even make it to 100, right? So sooner rather than later.
And one day, I hope we get to go from Mexico, Carlos, because
Exactly.
I've been to Mexico a few times myself, but I've always in the more the tourist areas.
Yeah.
But I would love to make it more accessible.
Oh, absolutely. That's a country that definitely needs more accessibility for sure than here, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
you would
sure.
know all about that growing up there and and in not a very touristy part.
No,
That
definitely
would
not.
be, yeah, one of the
Definitely.
reasons that he came over here, you know, just to have a better, you know, and you shouldn't have to travel, you know, all across the continent or something just to, you know, but it's the way that it is.
That's
And
the way.
people like you guys, you know, with Pedesting are helping to change that. And that's a
Yeah, and to your point, kind of the kind of man for helping not enough people. That one of the things that we hope to do with Pedesting is build a community of people who
Really.
really care. And it doesn't have to be, you know, people with disabilities. It can be everyone. Even like we've heard so many times, kind of from people, you know, parents with young kids who
Mhm.
pushing baby strollers.
Mhm.
Told us, oh, we could use app like Pedesting.
that's
So,
right. Yeah.
I think if I kind of take the community to drive change, and you know, we'll focus on the aspect, you know, of Pedesting will create a community from all walks of life. So.
Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah, we talked about that when we'd had a gentleman from Shift Construction, and where they're, you know, trying to tackle that whole when you build a home, it should be ready. Like it should be one of those things where it's like, you know, that you're going to have kids one day, and you know you're going to age in the house one day. Like homes should all be built to where it's like if you need to install an elevator, it's not going to go through the middle of the kitchen. But you know, just designing homes, like the architecture part, you know, just making them ready to go right away so that families can grow in those homes and, you know, age in the homes.
And you know, think about it. It's starting to happen. You're talking about a contractor who sees the light, and
Yeah.
I know there's a little town in Ontario called Caledon, and when you want to
Mhm.
build a new house there, that first floor has to be accessible.
Wow.
The entry,
Wow.
the bathroom, yeah, and I think they even require that you put a bedroom on that floor.
Wow.
Precisely so someone can visit you with a disability and someone can
Yeah.
age in place. So it's starting to happen. That's just one town that changed their bylaws, but
Yeah.
I talk about it all the time. So I'm thinking there's got to be a mayor of another town. Like, you know what? We're going to do that. So
Yeah.
it's very organic. And we, you know, when we promised each other we would never shame someone for not caring about accessibility, we also decided we're not going to rely on the government to solve this problem.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's been their job for a while and they've done some good things, but it's going to take too long and it gets watered down and nobody wants to be told what to do by the government, especially in Alberta. So we feel like, you know, let's get the business community and your
Yeah.
average people that really live and breathe daily urban life. That's the community we really think of it. As Nabeel said, it's not just the disabled community. It's like the word pedesting. We should all be a part of this.
Yeah.
We should all be represented. And that's what I love about what we're doing. We're trying to create an opportunity, a tool really for the disabled community to come out, be proud and be represented and be seen. And then I can stop talking. I know it. I know Carlos, I think would agree that we're, you know, I think the first thing I learned when I started hanging out with Nabeel is this incredible, powerful need for independence, which I've had a few times in my life where I felt like my wings were being clipped, but let's face it, I've had a pretty independent life. So that really struck me that, wow, you know, that you can't have independence just because you want it, because it's something out in the built environment that's preventing that. And I think Carlos would agree, there's some attitudinal changes that happen. It's not just the built environment, but you chip away at each issue that comes up, and pretty soon that big problem is a smaller problem. And pretty soon, hopefully, it's all but disappeared.
Absolutely. And just to touch base on what you're saying, Aaron, that you're saying that the more advocacy that it is, the more quiet the able body might be, and the more voice the disability community would have. I think that we need more able body like yourself, Aaron, in this case, to join forces, because we need that, because the more you guys speak about it with ourselves, the disability community, the more change is going to be. A lot of people think, oh, well, it's not my problem because I'm able-bodied, I don't go through it. But then I go back to them and I go, one day you're going to age and you might not be able to walk. And you might need a wheelchair, you might need a walker. And if your house, if your building is accessible, the better it is going to move, right? The better it's going to be for you. So if you speak about it now, which is what you're doing, Aaron, and more people speak about it now, the better the world is going to be in the future. Right?
Well, I really appreciate that, because Nabeel says that a lot. People, and I said, no, Nabeel, you're the example that people need to see. And he's like, but you being able-bodied, talking about this with that passion does move the needle, and it always kind of cracks me up. And I've challenged some of my architecture friends, not challenged them. I've just said, I find accessibility to be very sexy. And that gets their curiosity going. It's and that's usually all I have to say. They wonder why I'm doing this. I say, because it's sexy. It's very
exactly.
sexy.
And that's what anybody who does advertising or builds things, they want things to look sexy. It's got to have that, something. I say that when I make a graphic for something, I'm like, oh, that is, that one's good. That's sexy. Yeah, of course. I love that.
And what has been really cool about our journey so far is maybe in the last 6 months, we found that anywhere that we've gone out and about in Calgary, people have told us, oh, we keep on hearing or seeing about pedesting, but we think that we haven't met a broad community awareness, and I think it's nice to see that people are taking notice about accessibility and what we're trying to do. So
that's awesome. That's fantastic.
It is. And people can download now, right? Download the app.
Yeah, right now we're a beta version of the app, but we hope to have an app on the Apple Store and Google Play hopefully by April. We got a lot of feedback from users over the Christmas and holiday break.
Yeah.
So right now we are going for all the feedback and making the necessary updates before we make it publicly available. So hopefully in April.
Oh wow, that's
anybody can download, but but if anybody wants to try it out, you can download it from our website and give it a try.
I'm definitely looking forward to download it. For sure. Oh, sorry, Aaron, you were gonna say something.
I was gonna say, Nabeel's being modest again. When we go out and about to events, he's like a rock star.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of the groupie or the guy with the guitars. I'm amazed, and that's a testament to Nabeel's independence and lack of isolation. He's really put himself out there, even long before he met me. So I love it when we go out, because I just watch him absorb all that adulation that he gets.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
right.
I'm happy to let Nabeel, because it's something, like I say, I'm still the student here in my mind. And Nabeel's really teaching me, and I love that.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's
awesome.
I
mean, one could say that this app could help individuals with disabilities live a life without limits, which is what we're all about.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. I know if stealing a line from the handsome Ava campaign called everyone everywhere. for anybody to be able to go anywhere at a given time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, right now I would say I always have to be conscious about favoritism then because I'm not sure if it will work for me, but I hope one day I can live a life without limits, not having to be able to keep accessibility on top of my mind if I want to go somewhere. So
Yeah.
What about you, Erin? What do you think about the word? Do you think you're living your life without limits?
That's a great question. You know, I think thanks to my mother, she encouraged me to be as imaginative as possible. My dad always said, nothing's impossible, son. And so I've always tried to live, but there are limitations to what a person can do. But if you truly believe you can do anything, you're going to accomplish a lot more than someone who feels limited in any way. So and that can come in many forms. No, that's a tough question. I've never really felt, and I guess that's why I'm passionate about this. I've never felt that there was something I could do. I wasn't the greatest hockey player or stuff like that, but I always tried. And so when I think that there's a part of the population that's missing out in some fashion on something like a university education or going to a store to shop because it doesn't work for them, I feel like, well, that's where life really is. It happens in those places in the urban environment. I'm a real urbanist. I'm as an architect. That's what I love about architecture in cities. The city's a collection of buildings, and we all are affected by buildings, whether we're able-bodied or disabled. There's an old saying, I believe Churchill said it, we shape the buildings, then the buildings shape us.
Right.
It's a beautiful idea when you think of a city. It does make us who we are as a society. So right now, my limitation is I don't know if I'm a good enough salesman to really get that point across to people who don't understand this. I try and they get it, some of them, but that's probably my biggest limitation. I've never been trained. My father was a minister and he could convince 700 people every Sunday morning.
Right.
I don't have that gift. I watched him for many years, but that to me might be something I wish I was better at. When I watch Rick Hansen speak, he's the guy that really created the awareness that Nabeel and I have benefited from. Yeah. And he's made me cry a few times with the way he describes things. And so one of the things he says as Canadians, we are a different kind of society than most, and we're very tolerant. We're very open-minded about different cultures, different kinds of things. So we're in the right place, the way we see it. And so we always used to say, we want to make Calgary the most accessible city in Canada. Now we say we want to make Canada the most accessible country in the world.
Exactly.
That's our little goal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I guess I don't have limits,
and one thing, and do not mention this, but he often tells me, to understand accessibility, you have to understand disability first.
Right.
So I'm being an excellent student over 6 years, and one day I hope he can become a teacher.
And you're right.
Well, you're using a walker. I'll be very good at it. So.
Yes, exactly.
You're completely right, Nabeel, that we need to understand disability as well. And Erin, you don't need to be a salesman to be a good advocate. I can tell you that, because I am definitely not a good salesman either. I should, even though my mom thinks I am. I am not a good salesman, but I'm a very good. I'd like to consider myself a very good advocate. So, so you don't need to be a good salesman to be a good advocate. And I'm pretty sure you are, for sure. Yeah. You guys both are.
Thank you. Thank you.
And this is that's a great answer that we heard about My Life Without Limits question, because we always, like I said, we always have different answers to this wonderful question, and everybody has different perspectives about it, which is something that has really struck me since we started this podcast, because it's shocking to me what the most different answers are, and they're all right. There's no wrong answer in this particular question. So I'm very happy to hear you guys' answers, and you guys are doing a fantastic job. I cannot wait to download Pedesting. Even though if it's mostly in Calgary, I want to look at it. This is another big reason why I want to go down to Calgary, other than to see our head office. Our head office was newly renovated to make it even more accessible, more than it was already. So it was very exciting. So we get to go see. Well, I didn't get a chance to go see it. I think Leah,
We will soon. Yeah.
you have, but we
Yeah, I
will
saw a
soon
bit of
for
it,
sure. And Leah got a chance to see it, so I have a chance to see it soon, hopefully, and we'll see what happens. But thank you so much, Nabeel and Erin, for being a part of this show, and for all you guys, what you guys are doing. We wish you the best of success, most of the success that's coming up. I'm pretty sure many more years will come. People will be using this app for many years.
And the word. We're
and
gonna use that word. I'm gonna use it when I do my social media. I'm gonna put a little sticky note on my computer. That's Pedesting, and we'll make it a thing.
Yeah,
Well, maybe you're right, Carlos. Maybe I am an okay salesman.
Yeah, absolutely.
You sure are.
Come visit us when you're in Calgary, okay? Come see us.
Yes.
We'll definitely do. We'll definitely do. Sure.
Yeah, and thank you so much for having us and having such an engaging conversation. It's always great to chat with a fellow advocate in the space, and thank you for all the things that you do, because I think it really takes a village to build a community. So,
Exactly.
yeah, we're all in this together. So, thanks again, Carlos and Leah.
Thank you.
We can't wait to have you come visit Calgary. So.
We'll definitely do. We'll definitely do. We have now one more reason to come to Calgary for sure. And I'm very excited to see all of what you guys do.
But we won't be wearing red. I'm sorry. You guys are in orange and blue for the Oilers, but I don't think that I can bring myself to wear the Flames red. I don't know.
We'll see.
That's okay.
We can have
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you once again, guys, and to all of our listeners, please feel free to listen to this wonderful show today, and please feel free to connect with Pedesting. We will be putting all of the description or of the information on the description for you guys to connect with Nabeel and Erin. And also, if you need more information about our podcast and want to be a guest, feel free to connect with us on our Instagram page, which is also on our description, and you can connect with myself or Leah, and we'll be here definitely to welcome you with open arms. Otherwise, well, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And please do not forget to live your life without limits. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.